Designing and constructing buildings takes place over many years, with people collaborating together. In the Brick and Wonder podcast, we have conversations with people who work together to realize a collective vision. We spoke with two people who are collaborating on a monumental house project, 45 White Oak in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Nick Schiffer, the principal of NS Builders, a Boston, Massachusetts-based builder who says he wants to build cool projects with cool people.
I want to call James and throw an idea at him and be like, I want to use this wood and I want to do it throughout the whole house. And I want him to be like, shit, like that sounds cool. And those are the partnerships I want.
And James Robb, a co-founder and managing partner of Madeira Surfaces, an integrated wood product company based in New York and Los Angeles, who says the journey he wants to go on is to form tight industry relationships where growing and building together takes place with his colleagues.
Aligning ourselves with people who have, I think, the vision, the appetite, but also just allow us to, I think, really also do what we do well.
I'm Drew Lang.
And I'm Ravi Arps.
This is the Brick and Wonder podcast. Nick, James, welcome to the Brick and Wonder podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
So, yeah, very nice to spend the morning with you guys. The tour was, as I said, monumental. For folks who haven't seen the project, experiencing it is a monumental experience. So I think the thing I'm most curious about from the get-go is what brought you guys to this project? What was the thought process or lack thereof that led you here to this day to such a monumental and special project?
There's a lot that has driven us to this project, and it's a little bit about no thought process, but that comes later in it. So I grew up as a carpenter, worked for my dad from 11 to 22 years old, went into high-rise construction, was obsessed with construction forever. And when I started my business, I was very much a carpenter, and we were going to be a carpentry company. And when I say we, it was me and my brother, then my cousin, then a friend of mine, then two friends of mine. And years ago, I said, I just want to build cool shit with cool people. Like, that was my mantra. I was just going to say it over and over and over. And it was COVID. And I remember I set up an office in my house, and I remember sitting there, and I was scrolling Instagram, and I came across this house in Sheffield, Massachusetts, and it was one that Vincent had done. And it was like, Massachusetts house. I'm like, there's no way that house is in Massachusetts. Like, I would know about it. I don't know why I felt that way. I just was like, I would know about it. And it was. And I DM'd Vincent. I was like, hey, love the Sheffield house. Just so you know, I'll build your next house in Boston. And that conversation transpired into, I have a client looking to build in this town called Needham. Do you know it? I was like, yes, we're building a house in Needham now. So long story short, we meet this client. They want to build this monumental home. And unfortunately, just because of the market conditions, they hit pause. And Vincent and I became very close at that time, just very friendly. And we were constantly sharing inspiration, a lot of it Danish modern architecture, Australian architecture, sharing like these, Australian has this really robust development push down there for really high quality architecture. And brand and marketing, and just was doing building different. And we were trying to do that here with Motif Media and pushing our content and just being really active with the social and the YouTube and our podcast. And ultimately it got to a point where Vincent one day said, you got to just find someone to lend us a bunch of money and we'll just do this on our own. And that probably happened a couple times, but at one point it stuck. And that's exactly what we did. I went out and asked a dozen people if they would invest in this idea. And most of them were like, absolutely not. And I had one guy who was a client of ours, and I remember him saying, if you ever want to get into real estate development, let me know, because that's what he's in. And I pitched him the idea, and he's like, he was a believer in what we did. And we saw this as an opportunity, if we did it correctly, that this could be what changed the course of our business for the future. That's a deep answer.
No, there's a few threads in there that I'm curious about. One is how you chose who to partner with on your first development project. What was the criteria, if there was an explicit one or an implicit one, on how do you chose a partner to work with?
I think that had probably less thought to it. Mainly
Because you just work with the same folks most of the time?
this is our first.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean just in the construction side, the client commission work.
In the construction side, yeah. I mean, we're working with the same trades, same people, same vendors. But I also don't want to necessarily glaze over the fact that like this is the first, and my wife reminds me all the time, like when it's challenging, she goes, "I told you to do an easy one first," which I'm like, I appreciate you humbling me, but we're gonna get this done. But to your question, I think when I think of partners, like there's hundreds of partners in this job. There's the finance partners, there's the partners like Madeira, there's the other vendors that are involved, there's the trades, there's the subcontractors, the material vendor. Like there's so many people that are bought into this, and ultimately everyone that's involved in this project believes in it. And that has been consistent throughout. And, in every conversation I've had, everyone wants this to be a success.
What is this? Is it the way you're approaching development? Is it the design?
Yes.
Is it you?
It is the uncompromised approach to building. It is, we are building this to the best of our ability. It's we kind of dubbed it the Bugatti approach, years ago at this point. But we're not going into this saying, hey, we got to build this house and we have, $1 million to do it. Instead, it's let's build this house to the best of our ability, using the best materials. Like every decision has to be the right decision. Think about, everything has been considered on what is the interaction when the buyer gets here. And will it be a good interaction, or will it be the thing that they think, oh, that's where they saved money? So by approaching it that way and being completely uncompromised, that's where everyone's like, yes, we want to do this. We want to be part of it. Like, one of the carpenters last week pulled me aside and he was like, hey, I just want to thank you. He's putting cladding up on the exterior of the garage door. And I'm like, what's up? He goes, I haven't enjoyed what I was doing at this scale in a long time. Like I do great stuff, but the ability to do something as great and as, I'm going to use your word, monumental, that has like really inspired me. And that, I love that. What I care about is the fact that the architecture is deep rooted. It's the partners are involved. Everyone is here committed to doing the very best that they could. And it's not this, hey, do it faster, do it less expensively. Don't worry, it's not that big a deal. Like, hey, it's just a development. It's just that no. This is art. Like I want you to fulfill this at your highest ability.
Just to jump in there, Ravi, I mean, I think it's a real testament when Nick says that everyone believes in this. He's absolutely right. And we're all, I think, incredibly excited, but also awestruck by Nick's quiet humility, but his competency and his passion for it. And you used the example of a basketball coach. Nick is exactly that. He's the best kind of coach, and he's brought and assembled a team that's incredibly committed and loyal and passionate, and that's exciting to be around.
How did you two meet?
We met through Vincent Appel, the architect here. So Vincent and I have been working together for a couple years on some projects, and I knew Nick and I had been in touch, I think even pre-COVID or a while ago. We had some online or phone conversations. Yeah. And then Vincent and I were doing a project together down in Brooklyn, and it was the perfect opportunity. We were going to go do a mill visit, go check out the slicing of some reclaimed heart pine. We had a seat in the plane, and I'm like, Nick, are you free? I'd love to show you under the hood how the sausage is made and how Madeira, my company, how we like to work. And you said, sure, I'll come. It was great. And we spent a really, I think, exciting day. And that kind of, I think, just solidified the fact that, A, we like each other. We're excited. I was excited about what you're trying to do. And you basically sold me from day one. I was like, yeah, I'll be a part of this. I'd love to be a part of it. Honored to be a part of it. Yeah.
So Madeira is more than a flooring company. And I think this project showcases that in a very, very, very clear way. So I'd be curious to know about Madeira's journey and your role within the organization and what led you to
Sure,
approaching
absolutely.
a project like this.
So I am one of three founders of the company, three owners, and we are in our 13th year now. So the nice thing is that we're very similar places in our respective careers and companies with Nick and Vincent. And I think that's why there is that kind of camaraderie as well. And you're right, we did get our start as a flooring company, and that's what we've been known as. But there has been a shift in the last few years within the company, offering what we've kind of coined or trademarked as seamless wood design. And the whole idea is that one finish, one species throughout. I mean, or you could mix finishes, but the whole idea of single sourcing the material. And what made this project, I think, so exciting for us is that Vincent and Nick completely embraced that and took it to the nth degree, where it was like, okay, let's actually go select the logs and let's embrace everything in that log and let's embrace the character. And there's an offcut, there's a stump in the yard, in the log yard. Let's turn that into a table, the dining table to put down in the kitchen. And this project typifies or exemplifies what I'm most proud of. And I always use the a butchery example, from snout to tail, the whole idea of using the whole animal. And this is really embracing that. And this is what we're going to be doing more and more of. And this is just hopefully the start of many more together. And I know it will be.
So challenges. Where we are right now, it's beautiful, stunning. Couldn't have all been easy.
None of it's been easy, truthfully.
What has been some of the most painful aspects of the project for both of you?
Construction in general is hard for a number of reasons. You're dealing with hundreds of human beings, on a job site, all trying to get to the same goal. And you do your very best to organize that and push towards that. I think from a challenging perspective, it's the constant reminder that we are doing something that doesn't pencil. Like, meaning on paper, like the math doesn't math. Like, how are you ever going to, no one's ever done this. You can't do this. You need to sell it for less. You need to start saving costs. And it wasn't really the internal team telling me that, or really any of our partners. It was kind of outside noise. And, so financing it has been just a challenge. But I'd rather focus on my thought process around the challenges. And ultimately, when I think about challenges or difficulties, big or small, the easiest thing to do is to just not do it. And in this case, I could just stop, let it fail, walk away, and just let it crumble. My reputation, who cares? I'll still be alive. I'll just move on. That would be the quote unquote easy thing to do at this very juncture, right? But I find that when you are doing something that is challenging, it's the ability to just continually push through the wall, through the difficulty. It's like, all right, this is really fucking hard. I know I can get through this, and I'll get to the other side of it. And I just have to keep going. And I think I've always been that way. It's very challenging. I can get very overwhelmed, but I internalize a lot and I suppress a lot, and I put my head down and I just push. We have to keep going. It's like running a marathon. I ran it a couple of years ago with my wife, and mile 20, I was like, why am I doing this? This sucks. I hate running. I don't want to do this. But it was just just keep doing it. Keep doing, you're 6 miles more, and then it's mile 25, and then you cross the finish line. And I remember crossing the finish line, and I'm 30 seconds, I'm that was terrible. 31 seconds, I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm actually not that sore, and I just need water. And I'm that was it. And I think that's what I'm constantly reminding myself is nope, this is hard right now. You have to keep moving forward. If you stop, this is going to hurt, and it's going to continue to hurt, and it's going to be this dull pain. Push, get to the other side. But I balance that with this idea that in one way, none of this matters. I'm on this planet for I don't know how long, right? Like I'm playing with a pile of money that is mine, and when I'm gone, it will be someone else's. Like, and for me to go into decisions or projects or anything in life, like with the consideration, like I'll do it later, I think is just a dangerous act. Like I want to do the great things now because I don't know when I will. Like I don't know if I'll have a chance to do it later on. And ultimately, like I think that's where I get my risk tolerance. So for me, there's lots of challenges in every project. This being such a project that is against the odds and against what people typically see, for me is really exciting because it puts me in, or it puts us in this world of, you know, very little competition. And I know that there's a market that wants this.
So it's that belief really that's necessary in order to push forward that you very much have. There's the pain, there's the potential of the downside that you're talking about, but really what I sense is a lot of ambition, a kind of boundless striving, and on both of your parts, and that's seems to me what this is about. And on the other side of that ambition is a lot of possibility, right? So is that the why here? You know, like are you doing this because of the possibilities that lie on the other side of this journey? So we could call that the making of the market that doesn't exist yet. That's been made clear to you by the bankers, the lenders, the money people. So talk to us a little bit about how you see that.
That's the business reason why. The business reason is that this is an untapped market, that clients, you know who our demographic is? Our demographic are the people that are at the peak of their career. They make great money and they don't have the time to build a custom. They would love to build a custom home, but every one of their friends told them it's a nightmare. It's going to be over budget and behind schedule, and it's going to suck up all of your bandwidth. And meanwhile, you're trying to stay at the peak of your career. So you don't trust the building process, but you also don't have the time to build a custom home. So from a business perspective, yes. From a personal perspective, it goes back, I just want to build cool shit. That's what I want to do. I don't care what the price point is. I actually don't even care what it is. Like, I love building homes. I do. I also love building cars. I haven't built a car in a very long time, but I love that. Like, and it was always about just building cool things.
For me, to answer your question, Drew, yes, it is what's on the other side. I got here a little earlier this morning and I was chatting with Nick, and we were talking about, again, where you're at in your business, in your career, and building your network, right? We kind of are very impressed by some of the, let's call it the forefathers in the industry, be it Dinesen out of Denmark or Dowbuilt, Olsen Kundig, people who have really formed these tight relationships and grown and built together. And yes, I very much want to be a part of that, but we need to create our own tribe, create our own partnerships. And that's why aligning ourselves, not with everyone, but with people who have, I think, the vision, the appetite, but also just allow us to, I think, really also do what we do well. And what we do well is thinking a little bit outside of the box of what's possible, but also thinking about how can we actually replicate this. And so I'm excited for what's on the other side, because this has already led to interest, people putting our name out there, putting our name on the map. And this is a really well-known project. Just being in Boston yesterday and shooting the shit with people in the bar, at Burro Bar, and then elsewhere, even where I went and had dinner afterwards, people knew about it. These were a couple young kids in real estate. They knew about it. They've been following it. I think quietly, because everyone wants to see how it lands. But you're right. It will sell. And knock on wood, it sells for what you want. And I'm confident it will. Yeah. May take some time, but then it's on to the next one. And then it's on to, like you said, building cool shit. For me, as a company, I want to be supplying the wood that goes into the coolest projects.
I want to call James and throw an idea at him and be like, I want to use this wood and I want to do it throughout the whole house. And I want him to be like, shit, like that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Like that's like, and those are the partnerships, like specifically about Madeira, like, but those are the partnerships I want, where it's like, oh, I've never done that before. Or, I've never thought of that before. It's like, how do we push this?
If we were to this is white oak. If we were to do red oak, right?
Yeah.
I'd have to figure that out. We would have to figure that out.
Right. Hey, make red oak cool.
Yeah.
Everyone listening to this podcast is like, red oak's not cool. It's like, it's about to be.
Yeah.
This podcast is sponsored by Madeira, offering an integrated collection of high-quality wood products. They provide seamless wood design that simplifies wood finish specification. My architecture firm has worked with Madeira on several projects where they provided wood material for flooring, doors, and cabinetry. Their product line and approach created an integrated result and made the process easier, not just for my team, but also for the project contractors and mill workers. I personally recommend Madeira. You can learn more about them at madeirasurfaces.com. What's uncool, as we all know, is experiencing constraint in our work. Like what I sense is this pent-up desire to work in an unconstrained way on both of your parts. And I think people can relate to this. Do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And when we work on projects with many of our clients with a set of constraints, it doesn't feel good oftentimes. So it's inspiring that you've gone out on a limb here, that you have. And do you think in order to work the way that you're talking about, you have to do it on your own as a developer, with self-initiated projects, or can you do this with patrons, with
No, I think you can
too?
do it with patrons. I'm doing this on a development because I'm impatient. There's patrons out there that are willing to do this, and we could have already met them. We could have done a project. That could be your first project, and you just don't know it. Ultimately, like, there's still patrons here. There's still people that are invested, from a financial standpoint. Yes, they should see a return on their investment, but ultimately, like, those are patrons.
The next time you do this, when this lands, what are you going to do differently?
I don't know.
What mistakes have you made here?
From our perspective, from what Madeira, we would need to do better on lead time on certain of the custom elements, right? There was the inevitable reorder of material where you ran short. And for us, we need to get better at being able to turn that around and not have it take another 12 weeks. Like, that's where we need to improve. But there's just, and the next one we do, I would love for us to do more of the millwork potentially and have it more of it pre-finished, because I think that's going to increase speed and reduce cost.
We would spend more time in pre-construction. Pre-construction is like a really important part to our business on the custom side. And when we started this one, we had the inevitable, this is a development, this is your first one, you got to start construction ASAP. So we get a half-baked set of plans, get the permit and get going, and we're continuing to develop the design kind of in the background, which by all things miracle, like, we end up doing just fine. Like, I can't honestly say that there wasn't a single detail missed, but very, very little. And when Vincent walks here, like, I'm like, I need you to be brutally honest. What did we miss? Like, and it's less than a handful of things, and they're so incredibly minor, but it was just because we didn't get through that process early enough. So for us, it is the pre-construction for custom or development is the most important thing. And when we talk about residential construction as a whole, that is the solution to a lot of our problems, because what it does is it forces you to build the project before you're building. You're building it on paper, right? And when you think about labor, I think one person replaces every 5 that retire or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's terrible. And this is why
is that a true statistic?
It's like 20. You're only getting 1 to every 5. So then there's this, like, one of the things about construction in general is it's very romantic. Like, everyone is a romantic in what they do. So there's this, like, very strong advocacy against tech and AI and utilizing just technology, right? You get the cabinet maker that's like, I'm not getting a CNC. I cut all my plywood by hand. It's like, you are prioritizing the wrong things, guys. And that is Ken, and he has since come around. But but it's through and through. It's like when the skill saw came out, it's like I'm cutting my wood by hand. It's like then the skill saw comes out. It's like, well, I don't need a track saw from Festool. I got my skill saw. Now everyone has a track saw. We're so slow to adapt. So from a labor perspective, we need to leverage this offsite construction, and the pre-construction allows for that. So you want to think about how you create efficiency. Well, it's thinking about how you can build that offsite so you're not relying on all these people to be on site fabricating raw materials into something like this at the very end. So it's this balance of like supporting trades and getting people interested in it. And we certainly are. There's a heavy interest in being in the trades. But it's not enough, and it's very entry level, and there's not a lot of there's not enough education out there to get guys into the trades, and there's very few people that are willing to mentor. And when I say willing, it doesn't mean that they might not. It's either they don't want to, but oftentimes they just don't have the actual capacity to. So all these things play into like the issues. But if we can spend the time and thinking through on how to do it, and ultimately, preparing it, you can kind of bite those things off and allow more efficient ways to actually executing that work. And like Madeira, all the white oak in this home was manufactured offsite, not only offsite, but in a different country, shipped here, and it was pre-finished. So it went in and it was done. We didn't bring raw material and mill it and then install it and fit and try to figure all that out. Someone had done that months prior to the house even being ready for it. And that was because we worked through the design and the understanding of how it went together before we started construction.
What are the activities that you're talking about? And I want to get also into how you ended up in a situation where you needed to reorder materials and it had this massive lead time.
That was my fault.
Well, yeah, let's talk about maybe let's talk about that. So what is the situation? The reason we're asking is because people love understanding pathway through these types of problems in the industry. Like, how does it end up being resolved? How did it even start to begin with? How did you not kill each other during it? How did you see eye to eye and be part of a team and collaborate through it as opposed to pointing fingers? I mean, these are very, very, very often situations outside of this type of a project.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is ceiling material, and I literally just miscounted. It was as simple as that, and because we're at such a high spec, I just was like, if James said you should order 10% over, I was probably ordering 9% over.
Well, yeah, let's talk about overages. See, 10%, in my opinion, for something like this is way too tight to begin with.
Whatever.
I know
number
you used it as an
me.
example,
yeah.
but I think, I'm all about resource, let's call it being, not overbuying, right? But getting appropriate overage is the best investment you can get in your project, especially when it's a custom home, even though it's of this level. Yeah. You need to do that. And so getting people to understand that's my work. That's my job. And I need to get better at that as well, is getting people to understand, yes, just order that additional waste. And if you have some boards, after the job, great. Then you can put it in your personal home, or or you just give it to someone as a gift and they'll be so grateful. It's just, don't skimp there.
And oftentimes why it gets skimped is no one really wants to own that. Like, as a builder's like, here, James, here's the project I need. You do the takeoff.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you have to do the takeoff. And I'm like, then I look at Vince and I'm like, you already drew it. Why can't you just tell me what you drew? So it's these three people they're all doing the same exact thing, but for different reasons, right? Like Vince.
So that's interesting, right? Why wouldn't all three of you do it and independently and then come together and share your findings?
Because when you say that out loud, now you're like three people at, why would three people do the same exact work when we all are extremely busy trying to run businesses? So when you say it out loud, that doesn't make sense. The truth is, we are doing it, but we're not talking to one another because I don't want James knowing I'm doing it because I want James to do it, and James doesn't want me knowing he's doing it because he wants me. It's just, ultimately, like to your point about modeling, I think when you bring a project through the actual modeling process and because I have a model and it shows me every single framing component. I can tell you exactly how many pieces of 2x4, what lengths they are, because that's what we did. You continue that model, we could have told James exactly what we needed for the ceiling material. Instead, I'm doing takeoffs on, a software, and I miss an entire room. And it's, and then we're installing it, and, my carpenter's like, hey, we don't have enough. I'm like, figure it out. And he's like, what do you want me to figure out? We do not have enough. And I did the same thing with another material. And it's just, ultimately it comes down to, you're trying to prioritize certain things, and sometimes you misprioritize. But I think going back to planning and pre-construction, like that's the time to do it.
That very much rings true to my experience. Going back to Drew's question about, can you do this for a client? So the learning that you guys had, or your emphasis on pre-construction, the very notion of pre-construction, in my experience, to a client, most often means dollars for things that I cannot touch. So why should I spend these dollars versus spending a bit more on the slab that I want?
Yeah,
how do you convince the client to do this?
For years, I've been trying to figure out like how to summarize this. And I said it the other day to a client, and his eyes literally lit up. And he's like, "This is my favorite word ever." And if I don't get that job, I'm going to be livid. I said, the whole point in pre-construction is to de-risk construction. And he goes, "I love that." I'm like, well, that's the whole point. We want to de-risk. Like, that is the most risky part of this, is the actual construction. Is when we're under construction and I'm asking you questions, like that's where all the risk lives. How do we de-risk that? And it's by thinking about it. So I said this at an event recently, and apparently it was controversial, but I don't think clients truly want to be part of the process as much as we think they do. They hire you as an architect because they like your portfolio, not because they need someone to take this idea in their mind and sketch it for them. They're not looking for a drafter. They're looking for an architect. Some of the more frustrating conversations I've had internally with my team is like, don't bring a problem. Like, you don't bring a problem to a client. Or like, hey, what do you want to do here? Like, where do you want outlets in the house? It's like, why are you asking where they want? They don't know. Like, they have to start that thought process at zero. You, as the architect or the builder, you're at 70%. Like, the base is like, you have enough education. You just need some clarity. So instead, it's like, hey, our plan is to put an outlet here, here, and there. Period. They're most likely just gonna be like, yeah, that sounds great. If they disagree, in the rare case, they will let you know. But otherwise, they trust you. That is the point.
Drew, do you agree with this?
It's an interesting discussion, right? Because I don't think we can make blanket statements about these things.
No.
I think what you're describing is correct with many clients. There are another set of clients who want to be involved. And there are subsets of clients within the category of people who want to be involved, who express that desire and make it known. And there are another set of people who make assumptions that the professionals they bring into their project are going to bring them along on a collaborative journey, right? So the conclusion that I've come to about it over time is to raise these topics early on in the process, to suss this out, to feel out with people, how do you want to go on this journey together? Do you want us as your professional team to make important decisions for you on your behalf and implement them? Or do you want to be involved in the decision making? And when you ask people that, they have a hard time understanding the question, much less answering it. But it's still important to engage,
I don't disagree with you in the slightest bit. My point is that when you are bringing them along that journey, that you need to have the confidence to communicate what is happening. It's not a, what do you want to do here? What do you want to do? Hey, what do you think about? It's like they will be as actively involved as they want, but ultimately they have hired someone to that they trust. And that process, that trust is broken, in my opinion, when you come to them with nothing. And it's like,
I agree with that.
so and ultimately that's like what I'm getting at is, a client wants to know that they can trust you and that you can do what they need done. And that is why they hire. And for us, like, again, I'm a pre-construct, I'll talk about this forever, but that's why it's so important to us. It's like, this is our opportunity to de-risk the process, because we will sit down and we will figure out all of this before we start. That does not mean I'm going to ask you, how high off the floor do you want your outlet? I'm going to tell you that it's going to be 9 inches. And if you disagree with that, hey, you want it 10? We can make it 10. You want to make it 10 and a quarter? We'll make it whatever. Like, if they have an opinion, they will always let you know. But it's not going to be this overwhelming amount of questioning that becomes a burden to a client, which is the exact reason why projects don't get built, because the client gets fatigued. 80% of projects designed don't get built.
That's depressing.
Exactly. That's exactly, and we've had many projects not get built. And when you break it down, it's fatigue. And then we looked at what is causing that fatigue. How do we counteract that? And ultimately it came back down to we need to be more solid and always forward momentum. It's always communication.
What is your approach to building trust in the client commission world?
For me, I think it's exactly about communication and honesty and just managing expectations and really preempting all of that. But at the end of the day, it's about communication. And I love the fact that the people that we've aligned ourselves with are about, I believe, brutal honesty and sharing of knowledge. And
Brutal honesty works with clients, in your experience.
Okay, it doesn't always work, but I think it should work.
I think
and we should strive towards it. That we are fallible, we make mistakes, but how we deal with them, I believe, speaks more about our values and our professionalism than how we just deal with our successes. And that's something that the mistakes that we make as a company are always learning experiences. And I believe, not always, but generally, we can actually get through this and be better and actually have a better relationship going forward. And I wish there was more sharing of knowledge in our industry and less siloing and less protectionism. Because I think when the tide's up, there's more fish for all of us. And that's why I like the trade group that you've created with Brick and Wonder, and I like people that we're building this community with, like Nick and Vincent and Drew, because we are sharing information. I bring Nick and Vincent and Drew into the process of how we do what we do, because I trust them, and hopefully they trust me. So for me, it is communication and honesty, even though that's hard, is probably the best qualities and values that we can have as professionals.
This podcast is sponsored by Riley Architectural Windows and Doors. I've personally worked with Riley on several projects, and they've become a go-to partner for me and my architectural firm. Their team is warm, responsive, and technically outstanding, from the ownership to the project managers and through to the fabrication team. They make custom hardwood and metal windows and doors with true artisan-level craft at their shop in Calverton, New York. And they handle everything from design support to installation and maintenance across the United States. I actively seek out new opportunities to collaborate with Riley and look forward to working with their team on many future projects to come.
I think the reason why honesty about the process doesn't work sometimes is because it's not consistent. And honesty is sometimes a reaction to a bad situation where you start the process and it's all la-di-da, and then something happens, and then all of a sudden you're just like this all honesty, like, oh, well, this happened, and this is, it's like, it's just different. Like, that's not how you started the process. Where it's like, if you come in and you approach this like, hey, this is, we're going to be transparent and honest about this entire process. And it's always that. It's, you know, I'll give you an example. We met with a client to review a pretty large change order for a project. And this idea that my team had was, they came to me and they're like, this is going to be a really big change order. And instead of coming to the client and saying, hey, this is going to be really big, I said, why don't we prioritize and we'll get all the detail and show them, walk them through step by step. And that way, like, we know exactly what it's going to cost rather than guessing. I was so wrong in that process, because ultimately they were blindsided by this change order. And they're like, we had no idea that we changed that much stuff. Like, we thought like this was in the budget. So the point was, we should have been faster and just had this open line of communication. But where I'm going with this is, I showed up to that Zoom meeting, and I hadn't been showing up to the Zoom meetings because I didn't need to. So when I hopped on screen, the client knew this is bad. And in that moment, I was like, this is the consistency that we were talking about. If that consistency is not going to be from the beginning, then you can't just try to make up for it and all of a sudden, like, hey, now I'm, you know, honest Abe here. It's got to start from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And to James's point, like, that communication and building that trust is done from point 0 to point 100.
So what's next for you guys?
So this is doing a lot of things. We obviously need to sell it to a great homeowner. We hope that it will create this demand for this product even on the custom side. But the immediate next is that we have another project in the same town that, when this transacts, we'll start design on and get right into developing the second one. This was the prototype, the case study, and that will be the sequel. As we get into that one, and based on the success of this, we'll see what that does to our business. But going back to the start of our conversation and this project, part of partnering with Madera was not for 45 White Oak. Part of partnering with Madera was, we have the same values and the same ethos, and we need to work together. And every project becomes a project that gets introduced to James and his team, because every project should have the consistency behind what we do. And I said this the other day, I don't necessarily want to be a custom home builder, because I think a custom home builder has to be everything to everyone. And I am a lot more interested in building a product type where this is our product.
Yeah.
And it's not, hey, you know, I'm pricing out a project and it's using a different flooring and this kind of size. It's like, no, I want some consistency. I want to know when I start a project, I'm working with James. I want to know that I'm working with this material, like, in through and through. So interestingly, I think very much the architecture approach, where architects want to build or design things that are consistent and like have this consistency behind it, where the builder side is, I just want to build and I don't care what it looks like. But for me, I do. Aesthetic is very important to me.
So that's really interesting. You want to productize what you do, and that's defined by aesthetic consistency and
material, performance,
right? Team,
the approach, the way we market, the way we document it, the team, the people, the way we communicate. Hospitality is a huge inspiration for me. And there's something about going to a really nice restaurant or staying at a really nice hotel that just feels great. And that is something that we are consistently talking about it internally. How do we bring that to home building? I think everyone knows the book Unreasonable Hospitality at this point, but I've read that book twice now. And it's like that has changed my approach to customer interaction forever. And I tell my team all the time, this is how we're going to approach this. This is how we're going to build.
That's
homes.
Will Guidar's book,
yeah.
right? Yeah, it's a great one.
And it's just, this should be an experience. This is one of the most expensive things people will ever buy in their life. Why is it such a shitty process?
Yeah.
Like, why can't it be great? And there is no reason. It just, it takes, there's such normalcy around the shitty experience. Going back to the example of like, oh, all my friends tell me building a custom home sucks. Like I'll just go buy a spec and deal with it. It's like, that is the reality.
Yeah. I mean, just to build on what you're saying, for me, it's exactly the same. From my perspective, my perch is about not being a custom wood flooring and surfaces company, because we're always going to be then, I believe, limited, hamstrung, and only not able to, I think, grow and develop how I think in a truly innovative way. And so for me, I can't wait to be doing the next ones of these with Nick, but also with other talented home builders and architects, because we want to create a set of products that have an aesthetic feel and touch, and is very much the Madeira look, but through the lens of Lang architecture and through the lens of possible, but can go into these projects in a seamless way, right? And so that there aren't surprises, and that it's not painful, and that there are no large change orders, and that everything has been honestly and clearly communicated from day one. That's my goal, and that is the goal my company has. That's our springboard. We want this to be that springboard. We hope it will be. Yeah.
I mean, it will be.
It will be. Yeah.
Regardless of the outcome of the individual sale. Like that's one of the other things is the point is what it's done to this point, what it will do for the future, and the marketing collateral that we'll have for the next decade. And that's what this is about.
What question do you have for people in our industry that you'd like answered that would help you and others in our industry as we go forward?
Why are we so eager? Why are you guys, I'm going to generalize, why are you guys so eager to design something when you know the likelihood of it being built is so little?
James, what about you?
They're not going to answer it. They just
I know. Well, I think from my vantage point of perspective of wood, why in our culture is there such maybe a resistance to let the wood just do what it's meant to do? Why is there this unreasonable expectation that it has to perform in a really controlled way that doesn't change or evolve? Why is there this why do we put this unreasonable expectation on the performance of wood when it is a living and breathing natural organism material?
Both of those are really, really great questions.
Really good.
Yeah.
And just to indulge my brief answer to both of those questions, it's ignorance and an unwillingness to embrace and push through the ignorance and get to, through asking questions and exploration, getting to a greater understanding of, Nick, because your question, the knowledge of construction and what it takes to build something that is conceived in the design process. And, and James, in your case, not thinking of wood only as a finished product, but as a natural material, which it is, and letting it be that, and letting it patina, letting it live and breathe, and embracing that, as part of its beauty.
I would add that it may even go deeper than the embracing of wood's biochemical properties relative to steel or ceramic. I think it's this notion or comfort with impermanence itself. I think that's a cultural quality that we have certainly in this country and in many others as well, and in this time that may or may not have existed either in this country or others at other times. So it is a relationship that we have to the things, the objects, the material experience of our lives that affects lots of things, including wood, but it also affects ceramic. You know, there's this notion that if a teacup cracks in Japan, you glue it together and you use beautiful gold-infused glues such that the new object has a new life. So there's a bit of that. And then I'm not a designer, but aesthetics matter a lot to me. Your question gets to why obsess over something that you know or maybe don't know has such a low probability of coming to reality. I think some of that has to do with just the qualities of the type of people who do the design.
Yeah.
I mean, why do a project like this that may not sell, that everyone's telling you won't? It's because something in you cannot process it and doesn't want to, and in fact, doesn't care. It is about the act. And you are going to engage the world in that way.
It's
no
belief.
matter what. And you believe that it's going to work, but in the moments that you contemplate it not working, you still move forward.
Right.
Because you have to.
Because you're at that wall. You
it's
push
the
through.
very nature of you,
Yeah.
your being. And I think designers draw, fish in that pond of obsessive people. But anyway, the questions were so good that I think we both felt inclined to answer them, even though we usually don't.
There we go.
This was great, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
us, guys.
That was Nick Schiffer, the principal of NS Builders, a Boston, Massachusetts-based builder, and James Robb, a co-founder and managing partner of Madeira Surfaces, an integrated wood product company based in New York and Los Angeles. Their 45 Weight Oak project is nearing completion and will soon hit the market. As they look to their next projects, Nick and James are both focused on productizing their offerings, where they and their customers clearly understand at project inception what is being purchased and built. Thanks so much for joining us. If this episode resonated with you, the best way to support the show is to share it with a friend or colleague, someone you think would appreciate this conversation as much as you do. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to rate and review Working Together on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps new listeners find the show, and it means a lot to us. Thanks for being part of the conversation, and until next time, keep building, keep questioning, and keep working together. The Working Together podcast is produced by the team at Radio Kismet, including Christopher Plant and Justin Berger. The production and editing staff also included Brick and Wonder team members Ed Thompson, Carrie Potter, and Roya Osuli. And a special thank you to Motif Media for the photography and videography work on this podcast episode. I'm Drew Lang.
And I'm Ravi Arps.
And you've been listening to the Brick and Wonder podcast.